Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to this first seminar at Sverige i världen, which I have the honor to moderate. I'm Erik Halker, the president of Reportrar Without Borders Sweden, and I'm gonna lead this seminar on journalists and democracy under attack, the Swedish Response. And I have quite a large panel with me, as you can see. But I think we will manage in a way if we are short and effective in our responses. And I will also let you in after a while, so if you can prepare some questions. The panel that I have here is, and now I didn't have time to ask about your last name, so I'm sorry if I pronounce them. Gunnara Akundova? You are the head of department for global response at the International Media Support, Danish organization. And then we have Rova Al-Khatib, journalist from Syria, but now living in Sweden, of course. Yes. She has not traveled from Syria today. And then we have Björn Hummerdal, political advisor for the Minister of International Development Cooperation, Peter Eriksson, who couldn't attend today. And then Johanna Kurosh, is it okay? Russia coordinator and freedom of expression representative from Sida. Thank you all for coming. For you who were here and of the inauguration of this space at Almedalen, I talked a little about media freedom and the importance of press freedom in a democracy. So if you feel that I've already talked about this, forgive me, but there are some new people here. We have our World Press Index on the map behind you here. And as you can see, it's quite a colorful map. The white countries are the countries where the situation for press freedom is good. The yellow countries are the countries where the press freedom is satisfactory. The yellow and white countries are 24% of the world's 180 countries that we have in this index. That's the lowest percentage ever since we started to measure this. It's kind of a tough scenario, and that's why we're here partly I mean, all of Almedalen, it's a space to try and to struggle and fight for more press freedom in the world. Some of the countries that will be mentioned here today are Georgia. As you might have heard, there's been attacks on journalists in Georgia the recent days. 30 journalists were attacked during a demonstration outside the parliament just before midsummers. That's sad in a country that's actually improved a lot in press freedom-wise. But it also then goes hand in hand with the development in the rest of the country in the world, that they have a problem now. Armenia, another small country in the eastern part of the Central Asia, and the situation is tough. Press medium journalists are the space for press freedom now in April that fell the biggest, 24 places in this map because of the bulldozer, he's called the president, or is it prime minister? The man in charge. Sorry for not doing this. He actually has an interior minister who says everyone has the right to disappear. When the journalist disappears, he said everyone has the right to disappear. And then, of course, you have Syria. And instead of me talking about Syria, I think Rova should talk to us about the situation in Syria and also about your own experiences.
Yes.
Please, Rova.
Hej. först jag vill gärna presentera mig själv till er. Jag heter Roa Al-Khatib och har arbetat som radio- och tv-programledare i 15 år. Jag har utbildat mig till journalist och har arbetat i Syrien, Turkiet och Sverige. Här jobbar jag som programledare på Sveriges Radio sedan 2016. Där jag leder ett program som heter Arabisk talkshow. Först kommer jag att prata lite om situationen för media i Syrien innan och efter kriget. Och sen kommer jag att berätta om mina erfarenheter under mitt arbetsliv där. Jag vill börja gå tillbaka så långt som till 1850-talet. Då kom första lagen om media i Syrien. Första magasin kom ett år senare i 1851. I början av 20-talet var det riktig revolution i journalistik. Då skapade Mari Al-Ajami en magasin som hette Al-Arus. Och det betyder bruden på svenska. Al-Arus var den första magasin i Mellanöstern som tog hänsyn till kvinnors rättigheter sedan 1910. 1920 hade vi i Syrien 31 magasiner och 24 tidningar. 1949 kom ny lag om media med stor pressfrihet. Och under den tiden kan man säga att Syrien hade en rik period i sin historia. Pressfriheten tragedi började i 1963 när Al-Baath-partiet fick stor makt i Syrien. Då infördes något som kallas akut situationslag som innebar att människors och framför alla journalister rättigheter kunde kränkas. Den lagen blev och är än idag överordnad alla andra lagar i Syrien. Under nuvarande krig skapade den syriska regimen en extra lag som heter antiterrorismlagen. Och den skapade en ännu värre situation för Syriens journalister och människor. Den lagen hjälpte regimen att stämpla alla journalister och reporter som inte gav stöd till regimen eller vill rapportera objektiv som terrorister. Mina erfarenheter av de här lagarna började i 2006 när jag blev klar med mina studier och började arbeta på en lokal radio. 2007 försökte Syriens president Bashar al-Assad visa lite flexibilitet och öppenhet genom att tillåta en privat tv-kanal. Jag var en av de journalister som jobbade på den tv-kanalen och var väldigt glad för den chansen. Men min glädje varande inte länge. Jag och mina kollegor visste snart att kanalen ägts av statistiska tjänstemän, bland annat affärsmän som driver verksamheter bakom Maher al-Assad som är presidents bror. Efter 3,5 år blev jag utkastad utan lön och ersättningar jag hade rätt till. Jag hade inget inställningsavtal då. Och kanalen hade en tomt avtal med min signatur på. Att skriva under detta papper var en förutsättning för att få chansen. Jag hade ingen kopia, men det spelade ingen roll eftersom avtalet var tomt. Senare fick jag kopior på mina dokument och andra viktiga dokument från en av mina kollegor, och då anmälde jag det som hände mig i domstolen. Kanalen svarade domstolen med mitt avtal som hade fyllts i efterhand. Det var min chans att visa kanalens smutsiga sätt, men då domstolen brann ner med mina dokument och jag hade ingen möjlighet att slutföra anmälan. Detta hände i 2011 i början av kriget. Under 2011 jobbade jag i en syrisk tv-kanal som motsvarar SVT i Sverige. Där fick jag den sämsta möjliga avtal inom ramen för lagen. Det var inte fast arbete, vissa tidsanställnings och inte timanställningsavtal. Det var endast tillfälliga uppdrag som betals med kuponer. Sådant jobb kunde ge mig betalnings, men inga rättigheter som anställd. Endast de som var med i Al-Baath-partiet kunde få riktig anställning. På det jobbet såg jag hur regimen skapar sina rättigheter och för flaskor fakta. Arbetsplatsen var liknande en militärbas och det var mycket jobbigt. I slutet av 2011 bestämde jag mig för att lämna syriska tv-kanalen och arbeta som reporter på Russia Today-kanalen. Då behövde jag få reportertillstånd från informationsministeriet. Jag kämpade mycket för att få detta, men det slutade endast med jag fick muntlig tillstånd. Det var ett sätt för regimen att kunna avsluta mitt arbete när de vill och neka mig alla bevis som visar på att jag är en reporter som har licens att arbeta. Under mitt arbete i Russia Today-kanalen kallades jag vid flera tillfällen till möte med informationsministeriet för att lyssna till instruktioner om hur jag måste rapportera och vad staten vill eller vill inte. Jag var tvungen att intervjua personer som jag inte ville. Jag fick inte tillstånd till SNG som andra reporter fick. Och jag var inte välkommen på många event. De stämplade mig som en besvarlig journalist och jag fick inte rapportera om väldigt många saker i Syrien. I slutet av 2012 blev jag trakasserad av islamiska grupper för att jag inte hade sjal som kallade hijab. Och för att jag jobbar på kanalen som heter Russia, som många vet stödjer Russia syriska regimen. Regimen informerade mig i samband med min anmälan att de grupper som trakasserar mig är lokaliserade utanför statskontrollen och staten kunde därför inte skydda mig. Jag bestämde att avsluta mitt arbete på Russia Today-kanalen och det gjorde att regimen började förfölja mig för att se om det fanns annat skäl bakom min uppsägning. Jag blev attackerade av en grupp från så kallade intelligensbyrå i Syrien. Och de var som kommandos.
Säkerhetstjänsten.
Ja. Och de beslagtog alla mina dokument, min dator, min mobil och min kamera. Med de försvann också allt mitt guld. Efter några timmar fick jag att veta att det är bättre för min säkerhet att lämna Syrien innan det är morgon. Jag flyttade till Turkiet klockan 6 på morgonen, full av blåmärken över hela min kropp efter alla vapenslag jag fick under attacken. Tack för lyssning.
Thank you, Rova. It's a truly terrible story, and I think you speak for many journalists in the world, and Syria is of course one of the worst countries in the world for journalists today. What you describe is also a situation where an authoritarian regime tried to attack press freedom and journalists to diminish democracy and take control of freedom of expression. Sorry, you're not Peter, you're Björn. Björn, could you please tell us how because you recently sort of launched this democracy offensive to try to handle these kinds of issues. Could you please tell us about it?
Yeah. First of all, I will say that we also struggle with, is it a democracy offensive or drive? We don't really know. Yeah, no. But we are trying to
drive
focus.
Is better, I think it's better.
I don't know. But thank you for having me here. And if you listen to Roa and you look at the map over there, but also look to VDEM, a institution in Gothenburg that looks on how democracy is all over the world. It's very true that the freedom of expression and journalist is under attack. So when Peter Eriksson said that he wanted to focus on democracy under this mandate, he also said very specifically that the freedom of the media is central for this work. So one of the first things that we did was to raise our support to Eastern Europe, specifically to Georgia and Armenia, and there we said that media have to be supported in this support, and I would say that's as we see it, it's a matter of narratives. It's a fight over narratives. So. And one part of this is, of course, disinformation. And when Peter was traveling in Georgia and Armenia, it was very obvious that this was a big disinformation campaign going on, especially from Russia. And here we need a free media and freedom of expression to be handling this, of course. So this is. to be able to build the democracy, we need freedom of media. We also need civil society, of course. Those two are very important to have this development. And when we were in Tanzania, this was very clear as well, that it's the civil society that's being under threat, but also media. And of course, it's often very quiet way of handling media. It's when we talked to actors in Tanzania, they were very clear on that yes, we are allowed to report on this. It's okay, but we won't do it because of the consequences. We don't really know what the consequences will be for us to publish this. So that's of course a very obvious evidence. So for the central for this democracy drive or this democracy offensive is to support freedom, media freedom and expression, and that could be in supporting journalists, in supporting in their work, supporting media institutions, of course. Another way is that we also support something called Stratcom. It's a unit within the EU that works with gathering information and publishing every week. They have their own website where they're publishing, okay, this week often Russia says this about this country. So if you look to their website and you go in to see what they are saying about Sweden, there's a lot of disinformation campaign going on, and this is going on all over the world. So, and we are sending 2 Swedish persons down there to work on this, to collect evidence and collect information, and so that's also to highlight that this is going on and showing the public that this is something that's real.
Could I stop you there, please, Björn? Yeah. Johanna, as Björn mentioned, he mentioned Russia and disinformation campaign and how they sort of try to take control over media and what's said in a big part of this region. How would you describe this from your point of view, from Sida?
Firstly, I want to say, do you hear me?
Yeah.
That we at Sida are very happy about the democracy offensive because we share the analysis that so we are very happy about the democracy offensive because democracy work is a very important of our work already now. Today or last year, Sida spent 6.5 billion Swedish crowns on human rights and democracy, which is the equivalent of 26% of our disbursements, and 445 million of these went directly to freedom of expression and media issues. So this is a key area for Sweden already before the offensive, but it is very important to continue and develop this work. And when it comes to Russia, Russia is, of course, the dominant power in the post-Soviet region. And the drawback when it comes to democracy in general and press freedom specifically started in Russia already almost 19 years ago. So this is a long process. And when the first attempts to stifle the democratic developments in Russia and human rights came in the beginning of 2000. It started with actually press freedom and strangling press. So Russia is a key actor that influences all the other countries in the regions because of its size and also because of historical ties. And in Russia, only last year, there were reports of journalists being maybe murdered, journalists being poisoned, sentenced to prison sentence on espionage charges, threats, of course. And all this, of course, is not always verified, but the amount of reports about violations against journalists are extremely worrying.
Thank you, Gunnar. When you listen to these 3 comments or also the story of Rova. What is how would you like to comment, both on Rova's story but also what Björn and Johanna says?
First of all, let me just say that I'm very pleased to be here. And I would like to extend my personal thanks to Swedish citizens for supporting press freedom and freedom of expression, because none of these brilliant initiatives that have been mentioned here would have been possible without your support. We are talking about taxpayers' money. So we are very grateful. Well, I largely agree with your analysis on post-Soviet region and situation in Russia. Disinformation is a huge challenge. It's a modern challenge, and we have to address that. It's something that it's not possible to address, but it is possible to manage. So at IMS, we are a Danish organization based in Copenhagen, but we work globally across 4 continents. So at IMS, we have a strategy how to address, manage this information. And that's the verb that we choose, manage, because it's not possible to solve the problem right now. There is no silver bullet solution to that. And Björn has mentioned EU task force on strategic communication and their website dedicating on debunking Russian disinformation, which is a brilliant initiative. At the same time, you also mentioned the challenges in Armenia when it comes to disinformation, and I largely agree with your analysis, because right now Armenian media scene has turned into a real information battle where media is used as a tool for various political parties to fight each other, and media is hugely polarized in Armenia. But it is very important to support both in-country initiatives and global initiatives, such as, for example, EU task force. Well, on Syria, we know that situation is very bleak. But at the same time, I would say that there is something to celebrate. There is something to celebrate, and this is the courage of Syrian journalists and activists that continue working against the odds to inform populations in Syria and Syrians living abroad about real situation and challenges. And with support from Swedish people, IMS is implementing a large program in Syria where we support robust ethical journalism. And it doesn't matter where media is based inside the country or in exile. What is important, whom they inform and what kind of information they provide.
Rova, you mentioned when we communicated before the seminar, you had some proposals of how you could help journalists in your situation or in other countries.
När jag var i Syrien och jag jobbade, jag visste inte hur Reportrar utan gränser till exempel kan hjälpa journalisten över världen. Så jag kunde inte kontakta dem. Jag kunde inte få hjälp från dem. Så det första sak att journalister måste få mer information från de organisations som kan hjälpa dem i de hemska situationer. Och jag tror också att i de speciella situationer som krig, då kommer många journalister som inte är utbildade och de börjar att jobba och de gör fel sak i den yrka. Så det är också en svar till om vi säger de andra länder som har mer frihet, att de ger rätt information, de ger utbildning till de journalister som de vill, men de har inte utbildat sig. Och visar dem deras rättigheter och hur ska de få hjälp.
Thank you. Gunnar, do you understand as much Swedish, or should I
I
give
would
you
appreciate a brief summary, yes.
So Roa says briefly that in Syria, for example, she had no idea, Reporter Without Borders, if they were there at least, or how they could help, or if they could help her or her colleagues, or other organizations too, for that matter. And also the knowledge, the journalists, what kind of knowledge they have, and how you can improve the knowledge of what rights they have, and who can help them. This is very short translation. But would you say there is a journalist, or like, you don't have to focus on Report Without Borders, I mean any organization, CPJ or IFX or all of these media press organizations, how can they be more actively help journalists, for example, in Syria?
I would be happy to have a separate talk with you and hear all your concerns and how we can address that, because there are lots of ways, but I can manage the Syria Response group, which was a big coalition of media development and advocacy organizations, and RSF was also Reporters Without Borders. They were also part of that group, and the role of that group was to make sure that, you know, every journalist in distress and under attack receives support, whether it is evacuation, whether it's financial support or something else. But that was about emergency response. Right now, we are working very closely with several like-minded media development organizations, also supported by the Swedish people, to coordinate media development response. Because if you help to evacuate people, you provide them with some like very small emergency funds to survive, but it's important to enable them to continue their work. It's important to support independent journalism in Syria and outside of Syria. Again, I'm talking about exile also, because it's important that Syrian population have access to information. And it is only genuine Syrian outlets who are able to provide that information. It's not possible for Politiken in Denmark or for Swedish newspapers to inform Syrian population. And change doesn't happen over the night. So we should be patient.
Thank you. No, I agree. There are efforts, but I guess sometimes they come late in the process. Björn.
So I just wanted to raise the issue of internet as well. As internet is a important tool to get information inside the country, and you also see where countries will try to repress their population often shut down internet as the first step. So if you see Ethiopia now, it's has been a positive development recently, but now there's been some conflicts, and then they shut down internet. So this is very important, but also you can perhaps address this as well, but Russia had this internet law that they would apply. This is also something that Tanzania and other countries do. They put on regulation on the internet, what to say and how to express yourself on the internet. So I also think that internet is a very key place to continue to support a free internet. So that's also something that I think.
Absolutely. I think Russia is a good example. China, for example, they completely shut it down. Nicaragua, Venezuela is shutting it down every second day. But please elaborate from Russia. But I'd also like to know, talking about Syria in Russia, how could we help Russian journalists in Russia? If you can answer that.
Absolutely. When it comes to Russian laws, I mean, we've seen a number of dozens of laws aimed at the civil society and independent media since 2012 in Russia, and since the traditional media has been more or less closed for independent voices, now the Russian politicians have realized that it's time to focus more on the internet, and we've seen a number of internet laws. Firstly, of course, the law, I mean, we have terrorism laws, we have laws on extremism that have been used for a while, but also laws that force providers of communication apps to provide information to the security services about that make it possible for them to decrypt information. I guess you mean the latest law on the RUNET, which is aimed at giving the Russian authorities the possibility to close down Russian internet in case of emergency. There are different views about how possible that is in practice, but it is a very clear signal about that the Russian government is interested in restricting freedom of the internet. And then we also have the practice of targeting freedom of speech of not journalists, but people who maybe don't consider themselves to be in opposition that maybe share articles on social media and receive fines and sometimes even prison sentences for sharing or liking something.
But just could Sweden, as we have probably obviously have done in Syria, help Syrian journalists? Could we help with this Swedish response, this drive from Sweden for democracy, help journalists in Russia, for example?
Yes, absolutely. In Russia and in other countries, this is what we're doing. We're doing it through media literacy programs. That's for the general public, as you mentioned. Disinformation problem. We're doing that through supporting organizations that work for better media laws, through education to journalists on everything from journalist ethics to security. And also we support media directly to help them survive in this difficult environment where they cannot get financial support from elsewhere. So we're doing that to a large extent. As I mentioned, 445 million crowns per year.
I would just like to. Does anyone have a question? Please raise your hand so I can. Otherwise, I let Björn talk and you can think. There's one question. Björn, you want to say something?
No, I just want to say, but it was kind of positive as well because the Russian public was out and demonstrating against this internet law. So there was something that was very positive. People are online, or people want to defend this thing as well. So that's just a positive comment on this development. So yeah.
So we have a question over there. I think there's a microphone coming here.
Thank you. So Sweden is trading with a number of nations where these things are going on. Is there a way to leverage Sweden's trade relations with states to create greater freedom for journalists? After all, Sweden imports a lot of oil from Russia and does things in Saudi Arabia, as we know.
Good question. So can we pressure these countries to help journalists through other means? For example, trade.
Yeah, I will. I would say that it's not really my position to respond on that question on two things. It's both trades are something that the EUs are dealing with, but also another minister in the foreign department. So, but as I see it, there's of course a lot of. In the EU level, there's a lot of villkor. It's a lot of conditions for starting trade agreements with countries that are based on human rights, etc., etc. But of course, it's an EU competence, but also another competence for the ministers. Unfortunately, I can't really.
But as for example, EU, we Report Without Borders, we have proposed to the Parliament of the European Union to include in all the treaties, including the trade treaties, that they have press freedom, that the countries sort of try to support press freedom and help journalists to work. So that's our proposal. Johanna?
We focused a lot on Russia now, but I just wanted to share a more general reflection, because when I was hearing Rova's story, I heard a lot of things that we see repeating themselves in different places. You mentioned anti-terrorist laws. You mentioned that media is controlled by the state or businesses with close ties to the state. You mentioned yourself, or you mentioned that the pressure aimed at self-censorship, and then you mentioned yourself that you were attacked based on your gender because you are a woman. And unfortunately, these are ways of repress journalists and other also human rights defenders and other people who stand up for the rights and for freedom of speech. that we see in many countries. So it's also important to see how we can learn from experience in different countries, because obviously the regimes that do not want to see democracy in their countries, they are learning from each other.
Absolutely, that's completely correct. I mean, China, they have this global strategy how to sort of enforce their view of freedom of expression all over the world, so that we see this happening in all over the world. Any other questions? Please, don't be shy. Ask us anything. No, Björn?
I can add a comment as well. So this is also the part why within the democracy drive that we're also saying to Sida that, okay, now that we've said that we want to focus on democracy, media being one part of that, how will we work with this? How's the global trends? How are different regimes working in different countries to oppress media and civil society, and so that we can have this and see that, okay, how are we working the best to hinder this, and how to focus on this. So this is also one of the part why we're doing this mission to Sida to respond. So
Gulnara, we also, Björn mentioned internet, but we also all of us here have access to digital platforms, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp. And there are lots of information or media or journalism being spread on these channels. How could we work to improve press freedom and knowledge about journalist security or on digital platforms as citizens?
That's a very good question. And yes, in some countries, internet would be the only possible platform for independent voices to express themselves. But we also see that in some countries, internet is largely polluted by disinformation, malinformation, misinformation, hate speech. So first, yes, of course, we need to work to secure free internet and equal access to internet to all women and men. It's very important also to address gender gap in digital gender gap. It's also very important. But at the same time, we should also help media houses, journalists to navigate in the digital era when there is a lot of disinformation, information pollution, how to navigate. And also with the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning, how should they adjust their current code of conduct, ethical standards, to make sure that they are still able to provide ethical, robust journalism? So there are lots of questions, and there is really a long way to go to respond to those challenges. So it's challenges, but it's also opportunities, because machine learning, for example, could be useful for good purposes to address hate speech, for example.
Thank you. We need to round up. Rova, would you like to say something short? How should Sweden help your colleagues in Syria now, today? What should you do?
Vi behöver hjälp inte bara från Sverige, från alla andra länder som har bättre situationer. Jag tror att det är bra om hur det finns journalistförbundet i varje land, att det finns internationell journalistförbund. Så journalister kan känna att de tillhör till en
ett internationellt förbund.
Ja, som de kan skydda dem.
There is actually an international journalism union. I think there are some representatives here, so I could maybe present them to you, the Swedish representatives. But thank you very much. We cut this quite short now here. I was expecting more questions. You need to get more interactive for the future seminars. But I would also like to round up, as Johanna said, we see a climate of fear. This map shows this, with self-censorship, and we need, for us, all of us sitting here, I think we have to have a more understanding, have to understand more how journalists work, how their situation is, how news are produced, in what way. And that's a very good start to support journalism, to understand that this is not something that's produced by a machine, still, yet. There are journalists all over the world trying to produce independent news for us to understand the world. We need to defend those people. And I guess this Swedish Response is part of this, the drive. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow. We have a seminar about Afghanistan. Just, yeah.